The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests as individuals, and do not necessarily reflect those of advertisers or sponsors. This show is intended as entertainment and commentary only. The producers strive for verisimilitude, but nothing said on this podcast should be taken as fact by the listener or viewer without performing due diligence.
That existence, the physical universe, is basically playful. There is no necessity for it whatsoever. It isn't going anywhere. That is to say, it doesn't have some destination that it ought to arrive at.
This is Keep Your Hat On, a show by three nerdy nobodies and one nerdy kind of somebody about nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is brought to you by the Narrowband Broadcast Network, NBBN. The focus is on you. By PodSquadPDX.com, painless podcasting. And by the kind support of KYHO fans everywhere through Patreon. Patreon, create on your own terms. Hey man, we finally got the whole band back together, just in time for a streaming service market crash, pet sadness, and more bird stupidity. Anywho, I'm your disembodied hepcat, Mr. Brumage. Let me introduce your best buds. That's a late 420 reference. You know, for the kids. Here's Andrew, Robert, Dr. Mark, and the guy with the Netflix password, Tall Drink of Fresca 1972, Chris.
And hello and welcome back. This is Keep Your Hat On, the show where hell even we don't know. I am Andrew Scott, along with my good friends Ty Robert Anthony.
I don't know.
And Chris Vacano.
Howdy.
And Dr. Mark Peterson.
What?
How's everybody doing? We've not been together now for a solid month, all four of us.
Holy cats.
Has it really been that long?
Yeah, it has, because Dr. Mark was gone last week. Y'all up there in KYHO land heard me babble on and on about myself because I was on a podcast called Who Makes a Podcast with
very cool. Cool stuff, though.
It was a nice conversation. And, I hope that people leaned into his podcast because it did, you got a little bit more background story on, like where I came up with the name for the podcast and, all this other happy horse shit. So, no, it was a good discussion. I had a really good time. And he's got some very interesting people that he has been talking to. And he's got some more people coming up in the future that I'm going to listen because, it's just good stuff. But what's going on with y'all? How's everybody doing?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Cue crickets.
And the crickets are back, too. The whole family's back. We're putting the band back together, man.
I was on all fours, baby.
I did just rewatch the Blues Brothers, actually, the other night. And I'm just
You mean the annual viewing of the Blues
James
Brothers?
Brown. Can you see the light? And Belushi, the band.
So good. So
good. We're back. We're back.
You know what? Now that makes me, I got to go back and it's been a long time since I watched that movie.
You want to watch it?
I swear to God, I watch that once a year. It's one of those things where if it's on, and I probably haven't watched it in toto once a year, but anytime it's on, I will stop what I'm doing and I will normally watch to the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said in toto, and I was like, in toto? What?
In toto?
What is in toto?
That's the Latin version of in toto.
Yeah. No, it's been fun. I've been learning to watch movies with a significant other who is an expert at film editing, and the thing
that's got to take it in a different direction for you.
Universe, and it's like we're both laughing, but then she says out of the blue, she goes, Landis is editing the way you'd expect a 1980s film to be edited. It's like the cuts between scenes are much longer than they have been in the last 20 years.
I have something very similar happening, and I actually did it last night. And you bringing this up is funny. Heather and I were watching something in bed, and it was a show. It wasn't a YouTube thing. It was an actual show. And I backed up, and I backed it up, and I played it again, and I was just like, I love this show, but that is one of the worst edit points. And the point of view they're using. So I'm just doomed now to only watch things through that
Ryan and I
lens.
do that. Ryan and I do that all the time when we're watching movies together now. I'll point edits out, he'll point edits out. And
Chris, I understand that she's no longer your wife and now my partner, but there's a difference between sitting around doing it with your film student kid and laying in bed with your significant other going, man, that was the worst point of view possible. Don't you agree?
No,
you must agree with me.
I start talking.
It's a little weird. And
I start talking to my wife
is.
about, we're doing the same thing. And I, to some extent, I do the same thing. Although I would love to hang out with your partner, Mark, and just sit there and dissect the movie and just pick her brain and learn so much. But yeah, I'll say something like, oh, the color palette's different here, and the slide or the wipe is different, and you can see her eyes just glaze.
The white
over.
Balance and the saturation and the color temperature
Well, that
this is
black
what happens when you're a
inky
middle-aged content creator. Your entire vocabulary changes to keep up with the kids, man.
And she does. She gives me that blank.
Are you talking in English?
Yeah. I would like to say that it's like a deer in headlights, except the eyes are just like
glassy,
glazed over
just
much.
like, oh, you're talking about this again.
It's almost cataracts.
And it's a weird way. It's a weird way to watch something. I think it would be like it'd be like watching. Well, I always think back. I remember being at, and Andy's probably heard this story, but I remember being at a star party outside of Toronto years and years ago, and I was finally looking at the globular cluster M80 through a really giant telescope, and I was with my friend Brian Glendenning, who is like, I think he finally retired, but he was like a director of software at the National Radio Observatory Laboratory, National Radio Observatory. But anyway, I'm standing with Brian, and he goes, what are you looking at? I said, M80. He goes, oh yeah. And I said, "Oh my God, the wonder is beautiful. It's like a giant cotton candy glob with battery cables attached. It's twinkling in the infinite distance." And Brian looks. He goes, "What's really interesting about this is that the internal and external radio velocities are inversely shifted in the redshift." It's like,
wow, that made it.
But it's
better.
pretty, right?
That really killed the romance of the whole thing.
Wow, thanks a million. But and then I had to ask him what that meant, and it turns out it means the stars on the inside are going the other direction from the stars on the outside. I said, "Why didn't you just say that, Brian?" He goes, "Well, I did."
just not in your language.
Just not in your pathetic
and
language.
Apropos of nothing, I highly encourage you. This will be my just one little random throw-in drop that's not actually a My Three Songs. Highly encourage you guys, if you haven't already, to investigate M83, the band.
Oh.
The musical act out of France.
I think I've heard of them.
Oh, they're so good. And I was late to their party. Just fantastic, ethereal. Sometimes it goes really high pop. Sometimes it goes very ambient and very atmospheric. And sometimes this huge majestic sound comes out of them. Absolutely friggin' brilliant. So
cool.
Big thumbs up for that.
I have found some really, this week or the last 2 weeks have been in general for me.
Been an accidental music week for you.
I found some really good stuff this week. Ghost, which I shared with Andy.
Yeah, fantastic.
The return of pop metal. And these guys are doing they're just doing this proper, and it is just so
right on.
Good.
And that's so funny because I started dialing into Ghost this week too.
It's in the air.
Completely separate from you.
But in addition to that, I have found this band called The Main Squeeze. And if you liked soul and R&B in the 70s, these guys are a return to that form. And it is
very cool.
Such a breath of fresh air. So The Main Squeeze is just like,
all right.
Oh my God, where have you been?
I will throw one out towards you particularly, Ty, but Chris, I think you'll enjoy it. Mark, I think you'll find it's an interesting study.
Mm-hmm.
The band Wet Leg.
Yeah. I
Wet
listened
Leg,
to them.
Fantastic. They are two young women believe it's in northern England, maybe up in the hither
I thought
regions.
it was like the Netherlands or something like that.
No, I thought they were from the Netherlands as well. No, they're British.
Yeah, they're from the Isle of Wight.
Oh, that's it. Thank you, Chris. Isle of Wight. Yeah. And aside from the fact that they're just really post-punk pop fun, the other thing about them is I found it was very interesting to hear two women who are obviously very close friends, and the cover of their first album is really nice because it's just the two of them shot from the back, and they have their arms around each other's waist, just like they're hanging out, walking off into the heather, as it were. It is standard male pop trope sensibilities, talking about women and getting laid and drinking, but through the lens of a woman in 2020 something.
Cool.
And part of it, I was interested because of what feelings it engendered in me hearing that coming from a woman's voice. And I mean, I was used to it, back in the day. We had L7 and we had, a lot of Riot Girl stuff, which was very upfront and frank. But to hear it in this super saccharine bubblegum yet slightly discordant pop,
I am glad to hear you say that, because I was just going to say it is very, very sweet, almost saccharine. So
yeah, but by design and I think in a very sly way, in a way that I don't feel that pop is acting anymore. There's no cleverness to a lot of pop music these days.
Right.
This is like meta clever. This is back it up and listen to that again. Yeah, they have done a Tiny Desk, which was really good, which was awesome because 2/3 of the band are sitting on a couch just looking like they can't be bothered. But the music is absolutely tight. It's a lot of fun. Check it out.
Well, I was just thinking, it's like, I just going back to what Ty was saying too. I've got all sorts of, I have relatives down in the Gulf, and they're all putting up videos of themselves at Jazz Fest right now. And especially my little brother and his fabulous spouse are standing in the front row watching Lionel Richie. So they're selfieing themselves like 10 feet from Lionel Richie.
I still blanch when I hear acts like that at Jazz Fest.
It's a little wrong in a way, right?
I'm the snotty purist like that. Yeah, I mean, bring me Trombone Shorty at least.
Right.
Well,
so,
I can even get into Widespread Panic showing up at a Jazz Fest, but
there's got to be a viral argument going on in some New Orleans forum about this, right? This particular
they can bring it here to this show because I will back them. Tell you what, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We will come back on the other side and start talking about sadness, and then we'll start talking about middle of the road stuff, and we'll go out with a laugh.
And then we'll go to Crazy Town.
We're going to come live with you? Is that it? Yeah. This is the Narrowband Broadcast Network. I'm Andy. That's Dr. Mark. That's Ty. That's Chris. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Bye.
Hat Nation. Want to support the show and help it grow, or, well, keep the lights on? Head on over to kyhopodcast.com/shop and buy some cool swag. Shirts, phone cases, hoodies, and hats. I mean, duh. All proceeds go right into Andy's pocket. Help keep KYHO in your ears. That's kyhopodcast.com/shop. Go get some cool stuff, rep the show, and as always, keep your hat on, which is a lot easier when, you have a hat, right?
And we are back on Keep Your Hat On. I'm Andrew Scott, along with Ty Robert Anthony and Christopher Vacano. And Dr. Mark and I didn't know this until 15 minutes ago, but we both we had to say goodbye to some significant and I'm going to call them people.
Oh, sure.
Because cats and dogs are people too. My family, we had to say goodbye to our sweetheart Mochi the pug, the rescue pug. And Mark, we had to say goodbye to Fred. I will say this. Yeah. If you listen back to our catalog, Fred will live forever.
That's true.
That's true.
Fred knew when the mic was hot and was like, I got some shit to say, Dad. Step aside.
Fred was the shit.
I want to talk to the people.
Yeah, Fred actually guaranteed that my online teaching evaluations were through the ceiling. It turns out, it's like, what do you do with, you have 30 people in a Zoom meeting, and they're
do
all
I
trying
get to do I get to see your cat?
And it's quiet, and then the cat shows up, just like she would on here, and it's like, meow! It's like everybody's going, oh, show us Fred. Is that Fred? Is that Fred? Show us Fred. So, and Freddie, so I should just say, Freddie was 20.
Yeah.
And she declined
lived a
rapidly.
Seriously long cat life of ultra high quality and love.
Yeah, she outlived her sister by 1 year. Her sister went last year, Georgia. And they were named after the Weasleys, actually, because when we got them, you couldn't tell them apart. Fred and George. So Freddie and George.
That's a generational reference. Some people will have to look up.
I guess it is now.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. So
actually,
so Freddie passed on, and it was one of those things too, Andy. It's like I've been really lucky when we've had to send them on, right? Especially when we've had to send them on.
Yeah.
Because they've made it an easy call, and Freddie declined really fast, like within 2 or 3 days, and she went from like pretty much creaky and angry old lady to like on the bathroom floor refusing to get up. And so I was like, okay.
Cats are more like that than dogs are. I mean, I generally speaking, I'm a cat daddy. I'm a cat guy, and have had so many wonderful cats in my life. Ours was Mochi the pug. Heather, Chris, how long ago did Mochi get adopted? Was that like 7-8 years?
No, it wasn't that long. It was.
No, was she here?
Probably. Yeah, it was here in Portland. So it was 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago.
Right. And I'm going to do something mostly for my beautiful partner because she always loved this, but I gave Mochi like I normally do. I gave Mochi a voice.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mochi kind of sounds a little bit like Harvey Fierstein, but she's a nice little old Jewish lady, and she really just wants a little bit of pastrami. Why don't you get pastrami? If you're not going to make brisket, you can. And I would just do this voice spontaneously at, generally speaking, the most inappropriate times. And that was one of our tools for getting through the pandemic. The first portion of the pandemic was just, Mochi to be in bed. And the thing is, Mochi really got into our routine when we go to bed at night. And I swear to God, that dog knew the theme song to QI. And by the way, the dog was blind. The dog went blind about a year and a half ago, entirely blind. Knew the theme song to QI. Knew Adam Savage's voice for when I was watching Adam build something. It's like, oh, is it the man? We get to watch the man. I like the man. Tell me what the man's doing because I can't see shit anymore.
That's the voice. That's the voice of the pug from Men in Black.
Oh, God, maybe that was the subliminal seed.
Interesting. It just came to me. You did it so well that's how I recognized
it. It's what I do.
I was just going to ask him. I was just going to ask him to say, hey, have fun storming the castle.
Yeah, have fun storming the castle.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, Mochi took a turn. Mochi had been slowing down progressively over the course of time. And then this day last week, she had started experiencing seizures, spontaneous tonic-clonic seizures, and were often when she was eating, which can be a sign of subdural brain swelling. Because a dog is eating, its esophagus is contracting, the blood pressure changes, and she would literally munch, and then suddenly straighten up and just bonk, fall over, literally just keel over. And then a couple minutes later, we'd just wake her up and she'd be fine and just like nothing happened. last week it changed to where one happened, and then she looked a little bit more confused. And then when Heather took her outside to go to the bathroom, she did the same thing. And I'm not going to go into all the details. The short form is the dog told us what was up. And I had Heather take her over to Dove Lewis, which is our big nonprofit animal hospital here in town. And once again, I have nothing but praises for Dove Lewis. They did the absolute most fantastic job. And Mochi went on her merry way and is about 7-8 days into the Bardo, running around.
Yeah,
her sight is slightly coming back, and she's like, "Oh God, why did I do this? Things were better when it was dark."
She's over across that bridge playing mahjong with Bessie.
Yeah, she's
everybody talks about this rainbow bridge. What's with the rainbow? It's just a shade of gray.
Rainbow about.
Yeah,
it's funny. I always so over the years, I've had to say goodbye to quite a number of animals, and it's funny because I noticed this actually with my very first cat that I was left with a kind of almost an auditory hallucination as they died, with a kind of interesting, like an impression that filtered into.
I don't think it's I think it's a real thing
into consciousness. So I'm content to be that. So my original cat, Halo. Andy, did you meet Halo?
I have had the benefit of meeting Halo and Fred. And of course, the Boom.
So
Halo
was a Maine Coon, and he was a real rapscallion. And so, it was my first pet I'd had to put down, and he came down with a terrible cancer. And so anyway, we put him down, and I'm thinking, oh, poor cat. I'm petting him while the medication is taking effect. And as he breathes his last, I got this huge, literal rush. It was really indescribable feeling.
But you're describing it now, so
I am now. It was an amazing feeling, and even at the time, you kind of go, "Well, that is really interesting." Yeah. And then this auditory hallucination, and here's what it was: it was Halo going. It was Halo's voice, and he said, "Okay, next." That was it. It was
awesome.
That was his next one. And Fred's, I will tell you on the way out. So now, I sort of pay attention to this hallucinatory process now, and Fred's was a little different. Fred had a beautiful, easy passing. My vets up at the Kewaskum Veterinary Clinic were awesome people and who looked after these animals for 20 years. Think about that, right?
Right.
So as she's going, I'm starting to pay attention, and Fred's was a very Freddy one. So if I'm projecting, it was accurate. Fred went this way. It was like, whatever.
That's so your cat.
Yeah, it was too much Kierkegaard, Fred.
Right, there you go. That's right. Yeah, spinning off into infinity. Mine was.
It is a kind of weird sadness, but I will introduce one sad note because I always get real uppity about this whenever I have this happen, and I get real weepy, not because my own animals are passing, although I did spend, I think this is true for all of us, right? If you have pets, you spent more time with them in the last 2 years than you did with humans.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
right?
That's true. Yeah.
Humans were these virtual avatars. The pets were the things that actually kept us afloat.
They're with you. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, but what I always get weepy about, it's interesting is because Fred, Fred was an easy call for me, and it was easy. She was kind of ready to go. It was really clear. Okay. But then the vet always asks you the same question. They said, well, do you want to be in the room when they go? And we might, I don't know if we talked about this before, but the idea to me that there are people who will not be in the room with their pets when
anathema doesn't cover it. It is just, I want to get in a vehicle, drive to that person and beat them.
Yeah. It's beyond my comprehension. And I just weep at the thought of what it's like. And I can't even imagine it could be that way. My adopted grandmother used to say that you can't trust people who treat dogs like dogs.
Right.
And for people to treat their animals that way just seems unconscionable. Now, I have no good reasons for that, except that they're part of our families and so on.
No, I think that's a fucking good reason.
It's a shirking of your responsibilities, right, to the animal and to your relationship.
It seems counterintuitive, right? Because you have this animal that you have a relationship with, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, as I reflect on the relationship with my animals and in some of their passings, that relationship is more intimate in a lot of ways than any other relationship I have with any other human beings. Now, it's a different kind of intimate that I have with my wife, but outside of that, those animals are there for you. I have a cat. We actually have a shorthand. I know when she's, the sound of her voice and what that means for her.
Yeah, the language you develop between you and a pet is amazing.
Sure.
And
and so
I
for
agree.
you to not want to be in that room, I'd like be in the room. No, you're going to put the animal. You're going to put the animal in my arms, and I'm going to be there.
Yeah,
for that animal.
This was one of a funny kind of Fred moment at the end was the vets now have a very compassionate set of protocols that they go through with people, right, who are doing this, which is awesome. And I'm sort of sufficiently Norwegian and stoic that I don't actually need these rituals, and I always sort of analyze them while they're happening. But the one characteristic of Fred that distinguished her from any other cat I've ever met is that Fred hated to be picked up. She hated it. And her sister Georgia was like a complete lap, a lap slut. She just loved, she was a cat, right? Like that. But so the tech says, so would you like to hold Fred as we go through the process? And I'm just thinking, man, that would not be cool. And so what happened next is my vet comes back carrying Fred, because they put in a catheter first, right, to make this a really easy process. So he's carrying Fred, and Fred has got her claws dug into his arms, and he's bleeding. And he comes in, and this is Greg Dr. Greg is a great guy, but he comes in and he puts her down on the lab table, and she immediately just lays down, and he looks at me, he goes, Fred was the one who didn't like being picked up. Right?
Right?
Yeah. And the last thing you want to do as your interactive memory with Fred is being so forward as to accost them in their last, Dad, just pet me.
She went out on the right note. It was like, let me explain myself to you. But he remembered. He remembered.
I think we have a misunderstanding.
My former therapist, who was an absolutely wonderful woman, I was talking at, because at one point in therapy, I had lost a friend of mine, lost a pet. And we were talking in similar ways about that in one of my sessions. And my therapist says to me, your pet knows more about you than anybody else on earth. And not only that, you tell more truth to your pet than any human being alive.
That's nothing but truth.
I know. Yeah, and that you combine that with not wanting to be there at that moment. I have, before I moved back down to Portland, I was living up in Vancouver, and I lost two very dear animals to me within a year. And I, number one, I am a huge advocate, if possible, and that this time is coming. Home euthanasia makes things a lot easier.
It's so much better.
I believe on both sides. And, look, there are times like with Mochi, we couldn't do that, okay?
That's right.
Because we had more.
Because it happened so quickly.
And we had too many questions. We didn't know if this was something that could be fixed or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we had that.
But, I had both of these dear, sweet animals just go to sleep literally in my arms on my lap, just the way I would always hold them.
Yeah,
and
absolutely amazing.
It almost, when you combine those two dynamics, the this animal knows more about me, combined with not wanting to be there at the last moment, it's almost like certain people are afraid that the secrets will leak out and they don't want to be around. But condolences to you, Mark, and we will be encouraging both Mochi and Fred through the Bardo for the next 40 some days until they pop out, and they'll probably, with any luck, there'll be another pug and another cat. Tell you what, folks, we're going to take a brief break and scrape our emotional selves back together and be back with you. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Oh, yes.
Peace to the pug and to the friend.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, Michael, your stalwart announcer here, the voice of the Keep Your Hat On podcast. We really hope you're enjoying the shows we put out every month and the bonus goofiness we try and throw in. If you do, we'd really appreciate your support. While we'd love it if you could help us out with a monthly donation by heading over to patreon.com/NBBN, please don't forget that you can also support us by telling your friends, relatives, the hot Amazon delivery guy, hell, your potted fern, about the show, and do the like, click, and subscribe thing. That's free, and it helps us out more than you might suspect. We just want to keep putting something good out into this bananas world at this extra bananas time, and we want you along for the ride. No matter what, thanks so much for audio visualizing. Now, let's get back to the show.
Now, we're up to our long-distance dedication. And this one is about kids and pets and a situation that we can all understand, whether we have kids or pets or neither. It's from a man in Cincinnati, Ohio. And here's what he writes. Dear Casey, this may seem to be a strange dedication request, but I'm quite sincere, and it'll mean a lot if you play it. Recently, there was a death in our family. He was a little dog named Snuggles, but he was most certainly a part of... Let's go start again. I'm coming out of the record. Play the record, okay? Please. See, when you come out of those up-tempo goddamn numbers, man, it's impossible to make those transitions. And then you got to go into somebody dying. You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for, but goddamn it, if we can't come out of a slow record, I don't understand it. Is Don on the phone? Okay, I want a goddamn concerted effort to come out of a record that isn't a fucking up-tempo record every time I do a goddamn death dedication. This is the last goddamn time I want somebody to use his fucking brain to not come out of a goddamn record that is that's up tempo, and I got to talk about a fucking dog dying.
And welcome back for the third of, I don't know how many segments this show is going to be. I never do until I edit it. This is Andrew Scott along with Ty Robert Anthony, Dr. Mark Peterson, and Chris Vicano. And Chris, your piece today is something that we just finished talking about, how we really leaned on and relied on our pets to get us through the biggest wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. But one other thing that we've all been, and I mean, this is one of the reasons why, dear listeners, we're coming to you in your ears right now, is because everybody has really relied on streaming content services to get us through lockdown.
Yeah,
and, you know, there are so many different kinds, YouTube, Spotify, all the rest. But of course, especially for those of us in our generation who were there from the beginning of this phenomenon, you know, the OG is kind of Netflix.
No question about it. Netflix was the blockbuster killer.
How many of us used to get the flat envelopes? Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I still do.
Absolutely.
No, I'm
Are you
not
legit?
joking with
Really?
you. Legitimately, I still get DVDs
I
from them.
I didn't even know they
stopped
sent
doing that.
Yeah.
They have like two. I think they have two warehouses, and they don't do it for new
I
subscribers.
did not expect Ty to blow my mind in this.
I thought you were about to say they have like two DVDs and I just rotate them back and forth.
No, I guess they have like
And
they
one
have
of
like
them
two
is The
warehouses.
Graduate.
And so, because believe it or not, they still have quite a selection that they have on disc that they don't stream for whatever reason. Or
I was today
got that
years
hooked up.
old when I found out that this was still a thing. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
like right now, years old. So
one of the
rotating
things that's going on, one of the most recent pieces in the news was, of course, Netflix has come out and said that they are going to start cracking down on password sharing. Password. I speak for a living. Password sharing. But
yes, you do.
One of the things that this is tied to is something that you're talking about, Chris, and that is kind of the state of Netflix. And so what have you seen that's going on?
Netflix is actually struggling right now. And part of their announcement of we're cracking down on password sharing is as a result of well, it's tied together with what transpired about a week and a half ago. And that was Netflix released their earnings report. And for the first time since Netflix has started as a company.
Wait, I'll put the sound effect in here.
They had to put out a report that said, we're losing subscribers. And as a result, as a direct result of that, their stock plummeted like 60% in one day.
I mean, in Wall Street terms, the bottom fell out of Netflix.
Yes, it collapsed. And it's been on an even bigger, more general decline trajectory since last November. Its value since last November, it's down like 70%.
Good grief.
Yeah, the CNBC says that the company shed more than $50 billion, billion with a B, in market cap as a result.
Yeah, it's insane because, I mean, circling back, Netflix was the OG. They were the ones who totally changed the media landscape. First with the delivery of DVDs, which that created a huge amount of buzz. Everybody was rushing to get into Netflix. It was a hot investment.
And as you said, it really was the silver bullet into the side of the head of Blockbuster.
Yeah, it ended Blockbuster fundamentally, and so it was sort of easy to fall into this thinking that Netflix was always going to be there, and as we moved into, I mean, taking it back to the first couple of years of the pandemic.
The first couple of years of the pandemic.
Wow. Ouch. Yeah. That just hit me full in the face, too.
No, that's okay. I think we all kind of reared back and went, oh, my God, this is...
Good night, folks.
All right.
He just said that.
Everybody.
Have a nice night.
Okay, so binging shows was a thing before the pandemic, but boy, did it get turbocharged.
Well, you had to go out of your way. You needed to be in a clique. You needed to be in a resource group that had all the shows. But you're right. I mean, the phenomena was not born with Netflix, but Netflix is really...
Easier.
Boy,
Netflix is the place that made it be more a cultural phenomena than merely you and your friends gathering together to watch one person's Mystery Science Theater tape.
Yeah, well, and we all had nothing but time, so we would get through a show in a weekend, through a series, and this was all the streaming platforms working together. I mean, it was Netflix, it was
Hulu,
Amazon Prime, Hulu,
right,
etc. And another sort of layer of the whole transformation of the media landscape is when platforms like Netflix and Prime and Hulu started creating original content and putting it out there. Now, the thing that I find fascinating about what's happening to Netflix right now, I mean, aside from the stock drop, which is obvious and predictable. You come out, you say you're losing subscribers. You're not sure how to solve the problem, and you're cracking down on your user base.
Yeah.
Then, that's you're going to get blowback, and that's what they're experiencing right now. But what's interesting to me is this whole sort of social media dogpile of people just pouring out of the woodworks to raise their hand and say, yeah, I hate Netflix. Yeah. And it's like, you didn't hate Netflix 3 weeks ago. Why?
Are they the same people who suddenly now have to pay for it? Is that the problem? Is like,
right?
Sponging off their next door neighbors.
It makes the mind go there. But I understand what you're saying, Chris, where, before Russian Doll was your jam, and now Netflix, the company that brought it to you, it just sucks, and you've always hated them,
and you've always hated them, and it's a bunch of horse shit. And
is this a post-Trump thing? Is that the resentment?
Resentment got to go somewhere.
Yeah. I think it's more of a typical social media behavior.
Resentment signaling.
I'm good.
Trump thing, social media.
Yeah, that makes sense, Chris.
It's the mob mentality of you see somebody down, you run up and kick them.
Well, or is it that, or is it the fact that now in 2022 people have more choice as far as streaming platforms go, and are more willing to say, yeah, this model has always kind of sucked, but I've stayed with it because it was the horse in town.
What would be the model? What's the model?
Netflix has done a few things over the last year or two that have been really, really incendiary towards their
Like
subscribers.
Yeah.
They, at one point, what was it? It was close to the beginning of the pandemic or slightly before it. They were going to hike their rates up, and they lost lots of folks.
Yeah, there was quite an abandonment that happened from that alone.
Which is weird because they hiked their rates by like $1.
Yeah.
It was like $1 a month.
Before that, it was a little bit more, and you were going to get a little bit less. And that was an exodus. And so they've done some things. I question whoever it is that is canceling some of these shows their first season out.
Right.
Well, and
they've got some real winners that they've chosen not to.
If you don't light the world on fire and become a cultural a cultural explosion right out the gate, you won't survive. And I agree with you. I was shocked at a number of things that have been canceled that have just kind of been a one and done thing. Because
this is an interesting criticism of. This is an interesting criticism because example. This does happen a lot. However, I actually did a little bit of informal research last night, and it's not just Netflix who's been doing that.
No, it hasn't.
It's Prime, it's Hulu. All the platforms do it, but Netflix is getting blamed for it. And this whole concept of the limited series is not unique to Netflix. I mean, Disney Plus does it.
Is it the limited series, Chris, or is it this thing about they only release one episode a week?
Well, that's
driving me a little bit crazy.
That's a whole different model. That's
driving us back to old school television.
That's what we all grew up with, though. And I mean, that's kind of something that for me has been missing is remember the anticipation of, having to wait the week. And
having
God
a cliffhanger at the end of an episode.
Forbid football interrupt, and that goes all the way back to Roots and all the big time War and Remembrance and
Grandpa, you miss your radio shows too,
Shogun.
I do miss my radio shows. Thank you very much.
Do you guys remember the TV adaptation of Shogun? I was glued to that as a kid.
No, those things were huge, and part of the entire experience was the forced waiting and the week-long conversation between episodes. I just,
I just wanted to say the limited series are great because that they're going to wrap up.
It's going to end.
I do kind of like the model of being able to tell a larger story episodically.
Yeah. Well, wait. So you're saying? So let me. I'm missing something here. So you're saying people don't like the limited series thing?
Some people really gripe about it because they're like, I want more. Why did you get me all hooked on this and now you're only doing 9 episodes?
Oh my God.
It said limited series when you knew what you were getting into.
When you walked through the door, you walked under the sign that says there's only 6 of these.
Yep.
And I can see that frustration because sometimes the limited series, it's like the story is so good and so compelling. And it's like, I'd really like to see where this goes next. But okay,
but don't think of it as a limited series. Think of it as like a 6-hour movie.
Right?
Exactly, that's what it's like, right?
That's how I look at it.
A lot of them, it is because they're cinematically they're being able to unfold this story that they would normally have to compress into like 2 hours. And they're filming it as if it was going to be on a cinematic screen. In a lot of cases.
And I'm going to pull out the B word here for a moment and say, how often do you sit down and read a book and when you get to the end of it, you get mad at the author that there's not a sequel?
Do you know the Game of Thrones fans?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there is that.
Well, and that brings us to another interesting place where we'll kind of diverge as we head out of this discussion. And that is being that Netflix is such a scion, such a monolith by way of this model of broadcasting. I wonder what this belly falling out of it is going to do for things like Amazon and what they're looking at. I mean, what comes to mind to me is Amazon's new version, new series, which is definitely not a limited run, and that's their take on the Lord of the Rings universe.
Oh, yeah. When is that coming up?
That's coming up next year, and it is. Well, I'll say this.
It's a prequels, right? It's like Silmarillion stuff, right?
It's Second Age, so it's not Silmarillion, but it is a lot of backstory and a lot of
Elrond.
Right, exactly. A lot focused on the history of elves and all that, and the dwarves and that whole thing. They bought the rights to do more film work for something like $250 million. $250 million just for the rights.
Mm-hmm.
Now the report is, number one, Netflix has committed to do this for at least 5 series. And we're not talking about a 2 or 3
Netflix or
episode.
Prime?
No, Amazon Prime.
Prime. Yeah, okay. You said Netflix.
Thank you for catching that then. I won't even take that out of edit. Amazon is committed to do this for 5 seasons, and the first season sounds like it's going to have at least 18 episodes.
Good grief.
Wow.
And hang on to your pants, Frodo. The average that they're projecting each is going to cost is over $400 million.
Each?
That's ambitious.
For each season.
Oh, each season.
And so you're talking about each episode is going to have a rough budget about twice that of a good independent film.
Mm-hmm.
$20 million.
I see Amazon going through there. Amazon has had their own studio. They have actually put movies into cinemas.
Yeah.
Netflix would struggle with that. I mean, I think Amazon's got the leverage to pull it off.
Amazon has the market share to pull it off. Netflix is losing. What were you saying, Chris?
Well, I think we're getting our thumb on exactly the problem that Netflix faces right now. That at least what they're saying publicly suggests that they failed to see this, and that is their competitive landscape has changed radically in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And, Amazon has really come ready for the fight. Hulu is in there
doing
mixing
a great
it up.
Job
Disney
Star Wars
is
and
kicking
Marvel.
ass.
Yeah.
And now you've got some new players coming to the scene. You've got Paramount Plus, you've got Peacock.
I signed up with Paramount, man. Yeah.
Did you really?
And And HBO is still in there swinging, and they've worked out their model. And what Netflix really, I mean, to me, what this massive drop indicates, and what their struggles recently indicate, is their failure to read the terrain and adapt.
Yeah, it is a bit of reading the room,
more than
isn't it?
anything else.
Well, and I think there's a little bit more stuff going on in the background too, because now Netflix lost. They lost the DC stuff. They lost to HBO.
Marvel is gone.
Marvel is over on Disneyland, and so those licenses and agreements are running out.
And Steven Seagal's not making movies anymore.
Thank God.
What happened to him? Should we do a program about that?
We will do an entire show about Steven Seagal, because that combines all our favorite things: martial arts, bad acting, conspiracy theories, because he's supposedly mobbed up. Yeah, I agree.
Russia and Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, and Putin.
He's a Russian citizen now, and it's like, what in the hell? Anyway, I'm sorry to bring that in.
That's okay. That's a great place to diverge here.
Coming back to this subject, if you have not seen the newest Batman,
that's on HBO Max, right?
It's on HBO,
and
I can
breathtaking.
It is the best Batman movie that has been made thus far.
It is.
I am the worst nerd.
Up.
I'm the worst nerd on earth because I have no interest.
As we were talking about editing and frames and stuff,
okay.
Mark, some of this stuff harkens back to the detective novels and stays
you are
away.
saying things to me that other people have said a number of times about it.
Wait, Andy, I'm sorry. You were under the mistaken that I was talking to you.
Oh, ouch.
You said you weren't interested, so I kept talking, which means not talking to you because you're not interested,
Batman.
right?
Yeah.
Well, and
I'm just going to leave that one later.
Yeah, you guys are having a moment here, but take Batman out of the equation, and I've got to say, it's one of the finest film noir treatments of a film of a movie I have seen in a long time. I mean, it is such a modern execution of classic film noir. It's just delicious.
And Andy,
I've heard this visually, it's absolutely stunning.
It's stunning. But Andy, are you just not a comic book person, or just not a DC person, or just not?
I am, and I'm glad that you brought it up and phrased it that way. I do see. I mean, there's plenty of art, cinematic art, storytelling art that's available in those, and I have a good amount of respect for the genre of superheroes. But for me, it's very tired. And and again, I'm a genre as a whole genre. I mean, and it's at times it feels like it's crossing over to trope for me. And of course, don't get me wrong.
That seems right, by the way.
Don't get me wrong, though. There are even exploitations of the trope aspect of it that I find really well done. I'm a huge fan. Guardians of the Galaxy, sign me up. Can't wait for the next one. Okay.
Yep.
The direction they took Thor's story in, and putting a lot of humor in it, those reinventions,
right way, right? Yeah.
Those reimagings are things that I will show up for. But if you're showing me the hero / anti-hero and the struggle with power and responsibility, it's over for me. It's done. And I'm a person who loves long arcs and convoluted storytelling. I mean, and this is where people would be right to come in and criticize me for my opinion on superhero movies, because I'm a Doctor Who fan. I've been a Doctor Who fan my entire life. I don't know life without Doctor Who in it. So that I'm willing to stand up for that.
Tom Baker, that's all I'm saying.
Baker.
No,
I
Peter Davison.
I go all the way back to Hartnell. I mean, I was lucky in that I was able to watch a lot of the replays because in Milwaukee, Channel 10.
That dude made me want to wear
stars. They still run them.
Yeah, of course they do.
Yeah, they run them right after Austin City Limits on Saturday night.
Exactly. You know nice what? Combo. I'm glad to hear that tradition is still in place.
Yeah, they're still doing that.
Because I would do it. I would watch Doctor Who as a kid, and honestly, when I was a young adult and I was coming back from the clubs or coming back from working a show, I'd be able to throw Doctor Who on at 3:00 in the morning. It's just. There are so many other kinds of stories that I would like to see, and so many types of stories that are unrepresented. The fact that so much money is going into producing these stories that, for me, aren't really saying something new. That's where I run into the wall.
One of the things, and I would encourage you to go at least take a look at this new Batman movie, because one of the things that was really, really interesting was it did not backstory unless the backstory that they were going to share that with the viewer was going to propel the plot forward. Then it was only a few minutes of maybe backstory.
My big thing is I don't watch.
It didn't cater.
I don't watch movies very much anymore.
Yeah, you've said that.
I just don't, because and part of this, and we're wrapping this segment up here because we're up against time, but I have had a number of health experiences in the last 10 months that have made me really kind of reevaluate my life. And aside from the fact that even when I came into this relationship, I was more motivated to be doing things, I don't like just sitting there being entertained. I've reached this place in my 54 years where I go, man, the clock's running. And this is a 2.5 hour movie. And so I would much rather, and I know this sounds really egotistical or sounds really self-aggrandizing. I'm sorry about that. But the truth for me is I would much rather create than consume. I'm at that place in my life right now where I've got shit to say. I've got things I want to accomplish, and I ain't going to do it from the comfort of my armchair with a remote in my hand. Tell you what, folks, we're going to be right back, and we're going to go out with Ty. You've brought in something. Again, I can count on you for this. You brought in something fascinating, and we're going to dive into it when we get back.
Feel the rumble.
This is the Narrowband Broadcast Network. I'm Andy. That's Mark. That's Chris. That's Ty. We're the Hats. We'll be right back.
You're tuned to NBBN.
The Narrowband Broadcast Network.
The focus is on you.
And we are back for the last segment of Keep Your Hat On, and I'm hearing this just in. We've got an update on birds. We've got a very significant update for all of you conspiracy theory-minded ornithological
truth seekers.
There you go. There, I like truth seekers. That sounds good. So, Ty, what have you discovered for us here, Ty?
So I found this by reading a very funny opinion piece in I think it was the Montreal Star. Maybe it's
the Mirror.
No, it's the Toronto Star.
Yeah.
By the way, the guy's writing is just really, really good. But it turned me on to this British article in the Mirror. And when I first looked at it, and
all your favorite wacky news stories.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And when I first read this, I had to do a double take, and I had to go, is this the guy that is just like, is this Peter from Birds Aren't Real? Because here we go, guys. We're taking this Birds Aren't Real thing to the next level. And we've talked about this
up to the stratosphere, man.
The next level.
The next level.
So what's going on?
So this guy, Nick Pope, apparently he's worked for the government. He's been an advisor and an investigator of UFOs. I don't know what MOD is. Do you, Andy?
Ministry of Defense.
Okay, so he's worked for the MOD. And he is saying, and I'm going to just quote this and this will just kick off the conversation right here.
as it will be.
Oh yeah. If aliens want to hack into and control a living organism, or construct a drone that's a perfect mimic, they would be best to choose something ordinary and ubiquitous, like a seagull or a housefly.
I don't know. Seagulls are ubiquitous, but at the same time, yeah.
Them ubiquitous seagulls is what he's talking about.
So this comes back to the birds aren't real, because he's saying that aliens are now using seagulls, and maybe even houseflies has surveillance.
They're drones. I knew it.
See, my mind goes immediately back to listening to Art Bell in the late 90s and hearing the Yavos talking about remote sensing. Yeah. Don't even bother with the mechanical. Just figure out a way to remote sense into a bird's brain and see what they see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then here's another quote from Mr. Pope. Any civilization capable of getting here from another star system undoubtedly has technology that would seem like magic to us.
Well, there it is, right there.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. When I read that full quote, the thing that came up for me was a big question, and that question was, ego much?
Right. Well, at the same time, where my mind went was any alien race that is so technologically sophisticated and advanced as to be able to get to us wouldn't fucking bother at this point. Look at this place.
Well, yeah, we're just a tourist attraction. We're just, hey, let's go look at the hairless apes.
We are a Stuckies on the side of the road of the Galactic Interspace Bypass. That's the Vogons.
What I want to see is the burn-shaved signs leading up to us.
You're right. You can't even go in and get a pecan roll. It's closed up, and there's one dude outside with a can hoping that you'll throw him change.
And really, seagulls, come on. These things lose their shit over French fries.
That's
a charity risk, Robert? Isn't it? Right? What was that?
Mark was asking what you were saying. What are you saying about losing your shit over fries? If it's a good fry, I might. If it's a good fry, I might throw down and throw hands.
Mine.
Mine. Yeah,
okay.
Mine.
Hey, I don't think we got to pay rights and royalties on that, but we might want to be careful.
Sorry.
This whole conversation is contextually really, really weird for me because I've been like massively binging on The Expanse for the last several days.
You said massively binging on pigeons. And I'm like, that's very French of you.
I'm like mashing this all up in my head of terrorists from the belt sending birds.
Last season, I hear it. Yes, I thought you were going to say that maybe seagulls are some sort of proto molecule.
Oh yeah, proto molecule carriers. You got it.
Go.
Well, I got to tell you, going back to this editorial article, I kind of agree that really, if we're going to go to Crazy Town and we're going to say that aliens are going to use animals to surveil us, there are far better animals out there, like cats,
right?
Like cats, or with that, and cats makes a certain kind of sense.
Think about it. I mean, they live inside our homes. They nap 15 hours a day, so they got plenty of time to upload and download data.
Oh, that's a guy. I wouldn't have thought of that. You're right. As far as bandwidth demands go,
they're not napping; they're uploading. Is what they're doing.
Yeah.
And there's always that time when the cat is in the environment with you, and you're doing your thing, and they're watching you in this weird way that cats do.
Exactly.
Now we know why.
They're figuring out not how to eat your eyeballs.
No, it happens after you die. You got a week, and by the end of the week, the cat's eating your face.
Okay, but what? Alternately, what about the standard array of household pests? Ants, houseflies.
Why not?
Cockroaches.
Well, but they expand for.
I don't want to come to your house,
rats.
Chris, if those are your standard issues.
I just have sugar ants myself, but I'm just saying, these are all things that we just kind of ignore.
If you think about that, at some point, that's got to be a little bit expensive for the aliens because, let's face it,
we are worried. Wow! You sucked me in with that. I did not feel that coming.
Really dug way back to 1974 for that joke, and it wants a return.
Yeah, and it's about as I was just going to say it's about as fresh now as it was then.
Yeah. And yet it did the job.
Well, I find it interesting.
Henry Mancini in joke. Think about that,
right?
Yeah.
You got to be in with the hip kids in order to get down.
Give me Burt Bacharach now. That's what.
Engelbert Humperdinck. I just still to this day always loved saying that name. My thing with this, to wrap this portion up, is if there's somebody, right? Yeah, if there's somebody worried about surveillance in your home with your cat, your dog, your ant, your fly, your pigeon.
How about Alexa?
Thank you. Yes. I've invited them into my home, and it is still one of the weirdest things on earth. I will get up, I will go to the dinner table, we will be serving food, I will pull open my phone, and it knows the British game show series that I want to see between 5:30 and 6:30 every night, and it is there waiting for me.
Well, and let's get real here for a moment.
Oh, why start now?
Oh, sure. Wait, what come to reality? What the?
What
happened to you?
I was just enjoying that loose tether.
If aliens are surveilling us, I mean, if they are.
Sure,
it's just on a streaming service, and they are binge watching us as they suffer through their own pandemic. We are their Tiger King.
Yeah, actually, I think more than anything, honestly, we're not their Tiger King. We are their pandemic. They know they've got this place on lockdown. They finally got us. Yeah. There you go. Alien Invasion. That was a show. What am I saying? It was actually a really good show. Anyways, folks, we've run out of real things to talk about. So
keep your hats on now. I think
we are wrapping it up. Yes, by all means, keep your hats on. We will be back in a couple weeks again with more scintillating conversation. Until next time, I'm Andrew Scott, along with Dr. Mark Peterson and Ty Robert Anthony.
Hey.
And Chris Vicano.
Hey.
Crickets.
Adios.
There you go. Something. And until next time, keep your hat on, because as we proved, we may end up miles from here. Take care, everybody. Take care of your fellow man, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.
Well, there's a chunk of time you can't get back. From Portland, Oregon, this has been Keep Your Hat On, a big little show about a whole lot of nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is a narrowband broadcast network production in association with PodSquadPDX.com. Andrew Scott, executive producer. Robert Anthony and Chris Vicano, associate producers. Our theme music was written and produced by Andrew Scott, along with help from Ron Kajawa. Website design and maintenance by Vicano Creative, Chris Vicano Webmaster. Available at VicanoCreative.com. Audio and video production by Andrew Scott, available at AndrewScottMedia.com. Got ideas or comments for the show? Email us at talkback@kyhopodcast.com, and don't forget to like, click, and subscribe. On behalf of the boys, I'm your announcer, Michael Brumage. Thanks for listening. I guess.
The countdown will begin this Sunday afternoon at 1, right here on the radio station you grew up with, Music Radio 103.8. Oh, fuck. What the hell's going on here? Oh, geez, well, isn't it the last hour? We got another hour to do? Geez, I thought we were almost finished. Good golly, Miss Molly. Boy, this is fucking ponderous, man. Fucking ponderous. Hi, this is Casey Kasem. American Top 40 has moved to a new time. I hope you'll join me this Saturday morning and every Saturday morning at 2.
NBBN.
The Narrowband Broadcast Network.
The focus is on you.